What's going on, y'all? New Brave, New Wave, and we're back with another future legend in her perspective field. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a educator in the building, Southern University alumni. Please welcome Ms. Zana Harris. Zana, how you doing this evening?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a great pleasure to have you. And just like we always do at this time, I want to start things off with giving you your flowers early and telling you, man to woman, face to face, thank you so much for just the pivotal role that you're playing in our community right now when it comes to our children. You are you're literally training and rearing up like the next generation that's going to come behind us and do all of these great and wonderful things and just follow up on the future success that we will eventually have. So I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for that. I see you've been doing a really excellent job, and man, keep it going. Just keep it going.
Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. So to start things off, I want to go back to the beginning. Tell us a little bit more about your upbringing, where you come from, and what led you to take up a career in education.
Okay, so I am a Baton Rouge native, born and raised in Baton Rouge, even went to college out here at Southern University. Originally, I had no plans on being an educator. I started off college as a chemistry major, but of course, things didn't work out with that.
Things
But
change, yeah.
I changed my major after my first year of school to accounting. And so I graduated with a degree in accounting. But right before I graduated, right before my senior year, I had an internship at Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas. And I decided that summer that accounting just was not for me. So I ended up finishing my senior year. I still graduated in accounting, but when I walked across the stage, I had no idea what it is I really wanted to do. So I did work some other jobs for about a year straight, and I graduated in May. So that following January is when I kind of was like, okay, I need to really figure out what it is I want to do. So um, I ended up becoming a long-term substitute at a local elementary slash middle school. And that's kind of when I made the decision that, all right, this is what I think I want to do. So I did pursue an alternative certification program through the school district that I work for, and decided to take on teaching full time. And this is actually year 5 for me. And
Nice.
I just recently finished getting my master's in educational leadership from LSUS. So I think I finally, found my niche, and this is where life has taken me.
Hey, congratulations too on getting your master's in education. I saw that on social media. Um, so what are some of the, like, let's say like there's somebody in high school or maybe college right now who's majoring in education, who wants to be an educator. What is something that you kind of wish somebody would have told you in high school or college, or like when you know what I'm saying, when you was coming up, or or just told you on your journey to becoming an educator, that looking back you'd have been like, damn, I wish somebody kind of told me this like beforehand, or some kind of advice or some kind of knowledge that somebody who's a prospective educator could use.
Okay, so I would say that education is a very dynamic career. There are always going to be curveballs thrown at you day in and day out. So there's never going to be a time where it feels like I got this, like I'm 100% okay. There's always going to be something that it just kind of happens. So it's never going to be like an ideal situation, but finding that school community where you can be seen and heard is very pivotal in your career path, because if you don't have that sense of community and belonging, your job can feel like it's just hard, and it will be hard to get up and want to go every day. But having that sense of community, finding like-minded individuals in your work environment to have that sense of families, people to lean on, that is very important. in your career. And that is one thing that I do have that at the beginning of my career, I did not have, but I'm glad to have it now. And it has been a tremendous difference um, in my day-to-day work.
Okay, let's stay there for a second. So do you remember what exact moment that was where it kind of clicked for you? Like, okay, this is something that I'm built for this. Like I'm meant to do this. And I ask that because like there's a lot of people, Zana, who like they say like, they might tell their friends or family or something like that, oh, like I'm gonna be a teacher. And they give them the side eye, like, you sure that's something you want to do? You know what I'm saying? Because it's not the most what's the word I want to use? It's not the most glamorous job, right? Or like it's not like a favorite career choice for people. For whatever reason, it just has that stigma behind it of like being too difficult or like you're underpaid or like whatever the case may be. But like you said, I think that's very important that like this is a field for people who have that sense of like I want to help and I want to make a difference. So if you can you tell us like what moment that was for you where you said, okay, like I'm gonna do this, like I'm all in.
Um, so there was a moment where I was like, I'm off of this. I'm not doing this anymore. And I walked away for a few months. And I tried something else, and it was during the pandemic. And I was brought back to teaching. And I think this past school year, it's been a lot of moments where it was like that, okay, I'm built for this. But I think a major part in that moment for me, this had been this school year with all of the hats that I wear. I'm able to be able to reach my students in different ways. And there have been moments where things have happened because, like I said, it's a curveball every day. But in particular, there was one day where something happened and my kids waited all day. They transferred from class to class, and then they waited to the end of the day to come and tell me, what happened. And I
Mhm.
think that's when I realized that my kids trust me, they need me, they respect me. And if I wasn't here for them, that this would have been untouched. This teachable moment would have never happened for them. And I wouldn't have been able to render the help needed to assist a child who was calling out for help. And I think that at that moment it was like, okay, yeah, I'm built for this.
That's dope. So in your opinion, right? What's the biggest thing that needs to change in regards to education, right? Like, is it like what's the biggest issue, right? Because we hear about all kind of problems and issues, especially in Louisiana with our education system, whether it be like money or whether it be like the parenting, whether it be like all kinds of things. So what in your perspective has been the biggest issue in that field, and what's something that can be done to fix it?
I think that it's it just simply hasn't been prioritized. Um, I, Education in this state, especially in Louisiana, is seriously underfunded. So in the past 2 years, I've seen a lot of peers go to other states to teach because there is more money. And obviously, money isn't everything, but it does make a huge difference. And I think that if um, teachers were given a lot more money, we wouldn't be flighting to other states to find jobs because the money would be here where we would want to stay here and grow our community and watch other young children grow and become members of our community and remain members of our community and not go to other states and start families and lives other places, but stay right here in Louisiana.
Yeah, that's a common discussion between my friends and I as well. Is uh staying down here and kind of like building, right? Instead of like you said, you just get your education and you go. And I'm not knocking anybody for it, you know what I'm saying? I on one hand I understand, especially if you were born here, the want and the need to just move and, you know, kind of start over somewhere else, or like kind of just like really get your life started somewhere else? Or if you're in a certain field, right, and you feel like, all right, I've done everything that I could do, you know what I'm saying, as an individual, and you just don't see any change coming, and you want to go and, you know, have a better shot at a better environment, or a better process, then, you know, again, I'm not gonna knock you for taking advantage of that, but at the same time, it's like when there's an issue, somebody has to take the initiative and say, okay, I'm gonna stick around and solve it, because every problem can be solved, right? um it's not going to be a quick fix, right? Not like, it's never going to be a quick fix. It's a process. It takes time, but it does take a collective to say, okay, I'm going to make that sacrifice, and I'm going to stick around and just like see to it that my community grows and becomes better, or like this aspect of my community grows, it becomes better, and so on and so forth. um so the next thing I wanted to talk about is the current state of education, mainly the curriculum, right? And
Mhm.
I'm gonna say it like this: we both been in grade school, right? We both went to pre-K, all the way to 12th grade, all the way to the college level. I think it's safe to say that now the curriculum is totally different than it was when we was growing up, because I feel like we're in what I refer to as like we're in a like a mass like era of awakening.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things that we were taught growing up that we now see like, okay, that was bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Um, Both on the spiritual level, on a level of education, just all across the board. The biggest example, like the Christopher Columbus thing, right? So for you, what is like, has that been a like a sort of issue, or like did that take a lot of time for you to kind of get acclimated to, or was it something that you just like easily was like, okay, I mean, this is what it is, this is how I'm going to teach my kids, even if the board or whatever like doesn't really approve it, they want you to teach it a certain type of way? Like, how do you maneuver through that?
Um, is your question specifically related to the social studies curriculum or all four content areas?
I think mainly social studies. um
Okay,
if we're talking grade
so
school, yeah, like mainly like social studies, because I mean, math is math. You can't, you know, it's the
right.
same as it's always
I'm
been.
just asking, there have been like some issues with that people have with the math curriculum as well as
Really?
the, EL curriculum. Yes.
Wow.
Because we are teaching math differently than we've learned standard algorithms growing up, and now math is teaching our kids different ways to solve problems and why you should learn it, and kind of letting them become the mathematician and scientist and figure out how to solve a specific issue. But in regards to your question about social studies, right now there isn't a true curriculum for social studies um, in our district, and I work in East Baton Rouge Parish. But according to the State Department, there are specific things that our students are to learn. So, for instance, if you teach third grade social studies, your entire school year is going to be everything related to Louisiana. Um,
Okay.
like what geography, we have swamps and marshes. You have to teach your kids that. So of course that's important for them to be able to understand the type of land that we live on, as well as how the government works. So that's another aspect of social studies. But when we get into the historical aspect, being that there is no true curriculum, there are things that you're supposed to hit as far as getting your students to understand, like one time, Louisiana was a Spanish territory, then it was a French territory, and at one point, it became an American territory, and the history and things behind that. But it takes a lot of time for a teacher to, one, teach themselves that, because you're kind of like picking and choosing how to get them there, how to help them to understand the specific things for that particular curriculum. And that's just, for third grade. I've taught third grade, and I've also taught fourth grade. So I've never really taught a specific subject area as far as social studies where there has been like some a theory where we've taught something that may not be true. Like I've never had to teach about Christopher Columbus, so that hasn't touched me. But if that were the case, like I feel like they should know a piece of it, so that they can know how to decipher what's true and what's not, or what actually happened and what didn't. That way they can be well versed on everything, and they can participate in conversations to where they know what they're talking about. And they're able to pick a side of an argument for what they believe is true and to not be true.
Got you. So you pretty much give the students a choice, right? Safe to say, right? It's like you don't tell them what to think, but you kind of let them come to their own conclusion, or let them do further research.
Yes, because that's kind of where things are, I would say, going. We want them to be able to like inquire on their own. Like we give them the tools, give them the basis of everything that they're supposed to know, the background information. But the most important part is teaching these kids how to get on the internet and research and go to credible websites where they're able to build a report or an argument on something and give me textual evidence that proves their point. I think that is the most important thing. And then if we teach them that way, then the truth is just going to be there regardless. We don't have to necessarily worry about, what's real, what's fake, because they're going to find it themselves. We just have to be able to teach them how to get there.
In today's political climate, do you feel like you have to walk on eggshells as an educator when it comes to certain topics? Like race. I'm gonna just say it, like race.
So I won't say that I have to walk on eggshells, but of course I teach children of all different shades and colors. So I don't like if I do have a Caucasian student in my classroom and we're learning about, slavery, there have been instances before where, other children might be like, oh, all white people are racist or something. And
it could get awkward for that one Caucasian kid.
It can get awkward. So you have to be able to like have those conversations with them to talk about, tolerance and teach them that, hey, not everyone may believe in those things. And is this your friend? Have they ever done anything that may be like that? You have to be mindful of everyone else around you. And not saying that, racism doesn't exist, but there are times where those conversations have to become teachable moments, to where they're able to accept everyone. Because of course, right now in this classroom, everyone may look the same, but there may be another classroom you sit in and the person standing in front of you doesn't look like you. It's someone else, and they may not tolerate that, and how to deal with that in life, period, at a job or in college or, anything. Just being able for them to know the truth, but also, having tolerance for everyone, because they are still children, and just being able to know the difference, because I don't want to have to teach someone something that their parents haven't discussed with them. And that's kind of where teaching young children, sometimes it does get hard.
But where do you like at what point do you say, okay, I need to take it upon myself to kind of step in, right? Because I mean, some parents, like, let's just be real, like they do the best they can, but as a teacher, you could tell if a child is like lacking in some areas or not, right? So if at any point do you decide like, okay, I'm across that line, I'm gonna kind of like, um, give this child a little more insight in that specific area? Because here's my thing: you want to let a child be a child, right?
Mhm.
But I feel like there's some things about life that you just can't like really shield them from.
Yeah.
It's a way you could break it down to them where it's digestible for them to understand at their age. But I think there is some things that the parent isn't discussing in the household that might benefit that child, you know what I'm saying, in the long run, if like they get this information now instead of later. So have you ever been put in that position where like you had to kind of step in, or do you just kind of let it be what it is?
I definitely would stay within my boundaries because if I feel like I cannot have that conversation with the child to teach them and it would, I guess, backfire the way that I always, if they have a question about something that I'm not 100% comfortable with sharing with them, um, because one day in my class, of course, February is Black History Month,
Hmm.
and we had a Read Across America event. Ours was the last week in February, and we had a visitor that came and read a book. I cannot remember the name of that book right now, but it was basically the name of the book was it was about young Black men and being able to look at each of the Black men, the young Black men in the book, and say, "Oh, I can become an astronaut. I can become a police officer, a lawyer, a doctor, what have you." And the book was dedicated to Emmett Till and Tamir Rice and um, Trayvon Martin. So, of course, my boys, because the person who read the book said, "Ask your teacher, who these young men are." And then in my mind, I'm like, I, I thought that they would know, who Emmett Till may be. Because when I was in the fourth grade, I knew who Emmett Till was. I
Right.
remember watching TV and seeing PBS with a PBS special with Mamie Till
I
Mobley.
remember that special. Yeah.
I remember, like, I remember my parents had those conversations with me. Um, and I remember that day after he left, they were into the book. They were so intrigued because the book was dedicated to Black boys just like them. And they were like, "Miss Harris, who's Emmett Till?" I was like, "Do I show them?" And but I did give them a brief, overview of what happened. But I also told them, "Tonight I want you to go home to your parents and ask who that is. And if
Mhm.
they share that with you, then that's fine." Because that the images,
The
it
graphic.
they're very graphic, and I don't feel like that was my place to show that. But I shared enough of the history to make them go home and ask questions, and they certainly did. And some of them came back, and we had our own separate conversations outside of class, and they asked me on the playground, "Well, why would they do that?" And if they came to me, then but I feel like sometimes you have to have the discernment to say, like, what do I share and what don't I share? Like, because I want to share enough of history to where they go and figure it out on their own, but I also don't want to overstep where a parent hasn't made that connection with their child to talk about these things.
Yeah, I understand. And I mean, honestly, personally, I prefer that approach over like again the approach that like teachers had when I was growing up. Like I remember when the Trayvon Martin shooting happened. Um, I can't remember what grade I was at the time. It was in high school. I know that for sure.
Yeah,
But man, we was busy watching sports and stuff like that. We was at home. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
We was busy watching sports. We were watching everything but the news, right? So the Trayvon Martin thing, like I mean, you had a handful of students that heard about it, you know what I'm saying? But the rest of us was like, I mean, we don't know what happened. So I remember the teacher asking about it one day in class, and we were like confused, like, what? Like somebody got shot again? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we thought like it was like some, you know what I'm saying, some other shit. So she took it upon herself to like pull up the projector. She hooked it up to the computer and she played like the police recording. And you know, I remember that day vividly because I mean, that wasn't something my parents really like would have sat me down and said, "Hey, listen, like in this type of situation, you know, this is what it is." Like, no, like she really played the recording, broke down what happened, broke down what should have been done, and this is why this is happening. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I'm grateful for it because it did. I feel like it did kind of for me spark that curiosity of like wanting to get to know more about like why 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 the disparity between young African Americans and um some older racist Caucasians, like why that's there, and it kind of like sparked my curiosity. But I know there was one other kid who he back and told his parents like, "Hey, this is what we saw in class today," and the parent was pretty pissed off. Um, so I do understand where you're coming from as far as like you don't want to cross that line. And yeah,
Yeah,
again, I really love that approach.
you were in high school, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I have the baby, so it's like I have to tread lightly. I think I do have a pretty good rapport with most of my parents to where they would respect, if I did have to have that teachable moment. But I definitely try to, make sure that it's just enough, you know. Um, because for like Kentanji Brown Jackson, when she was confirmed, like we played it in class.
Hmm.
I feel like that's a piece of history. She's the first Black woman to become a U.S. Supreme Court justice. So
Absolutely.
we wrote about it, So in those instances, it's like I feel like that's unquestionable. Like we should be able to. But if it's just like a little bitter, a little graphic, it might get a little bit
Controversial. Yeah.
yeah, then I do have to, kind of pick and choose. Not that we're shielding from the truth, but you just gotta be careful.
Absolutely. And again, I gotta say one more time, I really love that approach that you take. I feel like any teachers or future educators that's watching this, they should take that same approach of like, listen, I'm gonna just let the students do the research. Like I'm gonna give y'all little tidbits like of what I can, and then the rest is on y'all.
Mhm.
Instead of just like force feeding it to them. You know what I'm saying? And that's again, I think that should be handled that way at any grade level. Um, so my next question is in regards to college.
Okay.
Now, I want to say within the past what I'm gonna say the past decade,
Mhm.
there's been a lot of discussions of whether or not college is worth it or not. Like, is it a scam? Like, oh, like people that go to college and get a degree, they can't find a job in their field. Now they're all mad about it. And you got people that like went to college, they knew what they wanted to do, they executed on getting that degree, and they're in their field, and they say college is the best thing that ever happened to them. What was your experience like in college? And I mean, do you lean more on the side of like college is definitely important, or do you lean a little bit more towards like it's not that big of a deal if you don't go to college?
I definitely believe like different strokes for different folks.
Hmm.
Um, College worked for me, and if I could do it again, I would still go to college because I don't want to do hair, No, and it's not a dig on anybody, but I
Yeah,
I I wouldn't go and do hair. Don't want to, have a trade or anything. And if and when I think about owning my own business, like, I don't want to be a boutique owner and posting or an influencer and have to post things on social media all day. Like that's just not for me. I like what I do, and I think that there are people that are just like me who like that type of lifestyle as well. But by all means, if you want to go and be a welder, that makes a lot of money too. If you want to, drive trucks, that makes a lot of money too. And I do think that students should be exposed to all of that, because there are some people who, who started at Southern with me who did not finish, but that does not mean that because they stopped going to Southern and they didn't get the degree, that their life stopped right then and there. They're working, some odd job, barely making ends meet. That's not true. College just wasn't for them. They found where, life worked out in a different way for them. And I think that it would have worked out a lot sooner had someone not force fed them and said, college is what you should do. Now, do I think that the experience of college is necessary? Yes, because I couldn't imagine, because I'm 27 now. When I graduated from high school, I was 18. So I'm almost 10 years out of high school. So that if I were to have gone to a trade school or done hair, I would have been 10 years into my profession and only at 27, 28 years old. And that's a long time already to have been working in a career and to say that you're going to do that for the next 30 to 40 years of your life. But I also feel like, time is a bit elusive. Like you can reinvent yourself 10 times if you wanted to. Like I could go back to school tomorrow to be an engineer, or I could wake up tomorrow and say, I want to be a nail tech and have a lucrative nail business. I think that, time is very much on our side. Like I feel like our generation of adults is definitely, taking what past generations or former generations have told us life should be. You go to college and you work this job for 40 to 50 years and then you retire at what, 62, 65, and then you
I think
just
it's later than that now. I think they changed it.
yeah, they definitely changed it.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine myself like even like yes, I love teaching, but doing this for the next 30 to 40 years of my life, I just don't see it for me. I see, whatever God has for me and what's next. Of course, I'm gonna follow that plan, but there's so much money out here to be made. We're not just this one layered versions of ourselves where we have to only do this for the rest of our life. Like you can reinvent yourself and go and do something else. Like I have plenty of friends that are nurses and have gone and got their real estate license. Now they're selling houses. Like you, it's just so much time and so much money, so many different things that we can be out here doing to where, I wouldn't say that college is just like a no-go. It works for some people. And I don't know if I said this already, but I do appreciate the time that I did have in college because it gave us time to figure out adulthood. And even if college doesn't work for everybody, I think that everybody should at least try it because college is the only place where you don't really have like you're an adult, but you don't really have to be full-fledged an adult. You can live on campus. There's some security in that. There's a campus dining hall where you can eat. You have running food and you have water. The campus life is a totally different experience that I feel like if you weren't to have experienced that, you kind of did miss out on your early 20s because there's nothing like that time that I had at Southern. Those were like some transformative years. Like, you'll never get to experience that again. You meet people from all over. And even now, it'll be, I want to say like 6 or 7 years since I've graduated. And then next year will be 10 years since I started.
6 or 7 since you graduated Southern?
Yes. I graduated in 2017.
We getting old, Zana.
Yeah, so
we getting old, man. Shit.
But it's like,
I feel like yesterday, man. Wow.
Just some people that I met, at Southern, like I can call them, hey, I'm in town, I'm in DC, like, oh, let's hang out, or, oh, I'm in Denver or Detroit. It's always going to be somebody to connect with. And I think that is the essence of college that everybody should be able to experience. Absolutely. And if you were to graduate from high school and just go into a trade or anything else that wasn't the typical 4-year, that is an experience that you won't get to have. And I do think that that is a once in a lifetime experience that if you do anything else, you won't have that. And everybody should be able to have that.
I couldn't have said it any more perfectly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I 100% feel like everybody should go to college. Even if you are going into a trade, just do it. Um, I was watching the Joe Budden podcast earlier this week, and he told a very interesting story about this barber that he met in New Jersey. And this guy, I think he was around our age, like 27, 28, and college education. Again, he's a barber, he cuts hair. And he said this guy owned his own like chain of barbershops. And he had this system set up where like he would bring in um barbers straight out of hair school, and he would teach them the game as well. So like he was making a lot of money,
Mhm,
and he had this like really well thought out system in place for the future growth of his business, right? And
mhm.
so he asked this guy, he said, like how'd you get started in all this? Like what, like what'd you do? Like is this something to do with your college education, your degree, what? And the guy was like, no, my frat brother put me on. He's an alpha.
Mhm.
And I mean, and Joe was just talking about like how he was just in awe of this dude and like his thought and his forethought and his business acumen. And I said all that to say this: even if you feel like your degree or whatever you major in is like useless or whatever, the networking, the like you said, the people that you meet and the doors that you could open from that, like professors, frat brothers, um, like you name it, like anybody you meet on campus. I mean, that could still lead to a lot of money and a lot of opportunities in the long run that may not necessarily have anything to do with your degree, but the fact that you went to college and you met this person, I mean,
That goes
that
far
makes
along.
it worth it. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, think about it. If the guy never went to college and played, he probably wouldn't have met this dude, and he
Yeah,
probably wouldn't be making the money that he's doing now. Like, yeah, he could have still been cutting hair, but he wouldn't have been doing it on a level that he's doing it now. So that's definitely a story I like to always share with people. Whenever they're kind of on the fence about about college, it's like just I mean the loans suck, but old Joey B supposed to be doing something about that, but we'll see.
we'll see.
Um, all right, Z. So this next segment of the podcast is called Tidal Wave, and how it works is I'm gonna ask you a series of like it's gonna be like under 10 very random questions, and you just answer them as honestly as you can. All right.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Let me pull it up. All right. Cool. All right. Question number one: money or legacy?
Legacy.
Why?
Um, because I feel like, I don't know, legacy extends further beyond money. Like the legacy can make the money.
Right.
Um, I feel like, as African American people, Black people, we already don't have that many generations of like wealth. So we're still building upon our legacies and foundations of, you know, family and what we want that to look like. And when I die, I can't take the money with me, but what I'm gonna leave behind is my legacy through my children, through whatever it is, whatever I have left here is gonna stay right here. So my legacy will mean more than any amount of money.
I love that answer. Next question: if you were trapped in a cabin, right, and it's like a snowstorm outside, you trapped in, it's gonna be like a couple of hours before you rescued, and you have nothing in there but a television and a VCR player. What movie would you watch, and why that movie?
Oh my gosh, I would watch Dreamgirls.
Okay. Hey, that shit gonna go off by the time you get rescued. By the way, that movie long as hell.
That is one of my favorite movies. Of course, I'm a Beyonce fan through and through, but it's one of the only like musical type movies that I can watch because the music is just timeless. And every time that I watch it, I feel like I'm like I'm in the movie, like I become entranced by it. And like every time it ends, that ending scene, I'm like crying too. I'm like, it's over. And so yeah, Dreamgirls, definitely.
So you telling me you haven't seen Hamilton,
Okay, I do love
Miss Teacher?
Hamilton. I do love Hamilton, but
Okay, I'm just making sure. That's supposed to be every teacher favorite musical. And you talking about Dreamgirls? It's
yeah,
fine though.
one of my best friends loves Hamilton. Be riding the car on road trips, so she's playing the Hamilton soundtrack. I'm like, girl, if you don't cut that off.
I played in the gym. Certain
Okay,
songs.
y'all are obsessed.
It gets me going. All right. Question number 3. And you can take your time with this one because I know that this one's kind of deep.
Mhm.
What is your top 5 most influential albums? And if you can't think of 5 albums, 5 songs, in your opinion. So like these are like the albums or songs that help make Zana, if that makes sense.
Ooh, okay. One, Emancipation of Mimi by Mariah Carey. Because I am an R&B person, like through and through. But that album, like, I don't think people really know the background of why she named it Emancipation of Mimi. She was in like a troubling marriage. She was married to an older man who controlled all of her music and kept her locked up. Like if you really look up past pictures of Mariah Carey when she first came out, she barely was out on the scene. Emancipation of Mimi was like her album when she came into her own after all of the drama from that marriage had finally ended. Um, and she kind of like struck back, and took control of her career. And that's one of the most influential albums in R&B ever. So definitely
Yeah, I did not know that. That's incredible.
yeah, I love, just finding out the stories behind people's artistry. Um, so my next album would of course be Beyonce's Lemonade because it took us through um emotions. Like I feel like every woman can definitely like relate to that album just because every song reflected, and we find that out from the film, but it reflects her journey from what happened in her own relationship to the point of from going from anger, wanting to avenge that amount of anger from being so hurt and then getting to forgiveness. And I think that not only connecting it to relationships like with a significant other, but like with anybody in life, because I'm big on spirituality, and if Christianity says that Jesus died for our sins, if he died and gave us the power to have grace and mercy, we should be able to forgive anybody. Like we're not bigger than God not to give anybody grace, mercy, and forgiveness. So I think that album is very powerful in teaching us that lesson of forgiving anybody um, and moving forward in life. So that's my second album. Um, Now it's a little tough. Let me think. You're gonna make me pull out my album music.
Yeah, go for it.
um Another album. These are kind of like my favorite artists.
Yeah, you can do artists too if you can't think of an album.
Can we go back to the question just so I make sure that my answer is
Yeah, so it's your top 5 influential albums or songs. Or if you don't have those, like you could like name an influential artist. That's fine too.
okay. So I've already given like the big two, Beyonce and Mariah Carey. Of course, if I have to pick another artist, I would say Whitney Houston.
Okay.
Because like those are the 3 greatest voices of all time. And I just really regret not being able to see her in person before she passed away because that would have been a once in a lifetime experience is seeing Whitney Houston. Like, come on, like she's one of the greatest ever. I would say another influential artist. I would say Janet Jackson, because she really changed the game and women being able to own their bodies, and like everybody loves Janet Jackson. She's an awesome
Absolutely.
entertainer. Um, and my last one, I would say, hmm,
Come on, you got one more.
I know I'm trying to think of who that could be. I just love everybody so much. um, okay, well, I'm gonna go with Tamia because um
Wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting that one.
right, because she's to me, she's like an underdog in the music industry, and I just I grew up singing her music a lot. And when I was in the fourth grade, no, in the third grade, I finally overcame my fear of singing in front of people, and I chose one of her songs to sing in the talent show. So my fifth pick would be Tamia.
You know what? That's actually a solid top five. I'm not mad at any of those picks. I was a little iffy about the Tamia thing, and then you said the significance of it, and yeah, that's pretty influential. So it fits the bill. All right, next question. What is the most thoughtful or interesting gift that a student or parent has given you?
Mm, let me think. That a student or parent. Um, I think the most thoughtful gift that I've gotten, honestly, one of my kids, so we did like candygrams this year for Valentine's Day. And I
Mhm.
wasn't expecting to get one, but I got one for one of my kids.
Oh, that's sweet.
And she wrote on there, I love you so much. You're the best volleyball coach ever. And the season had been over, and it's just the fact that she spent her little money to get me something and write me that special message. I feel like, that made me really realize how much of an impact I truly have had on her life. For her to even write that message for me, because she's not in my class, she's not in my grade level at all.
Yeah, so
Um,
she went out of her way
yeah, she
to
went
do
out of
that.
her way, and then she came to my room at the end of the day. She comes and sees me like almost, if not in the morning, in the afternoon, to beg me for some candy. But she definitely came that day and was like, "Did you get your your candygram?" And I was like, "Yes, thank you so much." So that I would say that that had to be the most influential, because it was just a gentle reminder of why I do what I do.
Absolutely. I love stories like that. It reminds me of when I was a kid. I'll never forget, just like she'll never forget you, I'll never forget my teacher, Miss Edwards, because that's like it was like the same thing. Like that was my favorite teacher, and I would just like always draw stuff for her and stuff like that. Like she was the best. Shout out Miss Edwards if she's ever watching this.
Hey, Miss
um,
Birds.
okay, so you went to Coachella this year, right?
Hmm.
Like you literally just got back.
Yeah.
So my next question is, was Coachella like did it live up to the hype? Like did it live up to expectations, or was it kind of like just like any other festival?
I definitely say it definitely did live up to the expectations. It's, we're from Louisiana, so festivals are kind of, our thing out here, but it's a different type of vibe. One, it's very cleaner. In the West, I feel like they have really like taken up the whole going green thing. Like the festival grounds were constantly being cleaned in comparison to, Mardi Gras and
Yeah,
all the festivals we have out here, where the grounds would just be filthy. So, and I noticed that, but it just was a different vibe. And I have been very much guilty of, like, if something isn't a predominant, like showcased as like predominantly Black, not willing to be a part of it just because it's like, that ain't for us. type of thing. But it just wasn't that vibe. Like it was so beautiful to be there. It was so many people from all over the world, honestly, and different artists that I probably would have never listened to, and just watching the crowd and seeing like how the crowd would be captivated by different artists that I had never heard. It made you want to, go download their music and have that same experience. Like I
Mhm.
saw, I'm familiar with Carol G, but most of her music is in Spanish.
Right.
Obviously, I don't speak Spanish, but um, just seeing the Latin community out there, just singing her music and just seeing their pride too, because part of her show, she paid homage to other Latin artists. Like she started singing a Selena song, and then she did Despacito, and just others. She did the Macarena, like just other famous Latin songs, and just seeing, and it just kind of reminded me of like how, we'll be in the club and you hear that old school and everybody's like singing "Can We Talk?"
Yeah, it's
So
an
I
energy.
was
Yeah.
like, okay, like, and it was good to see, and of course, like walking around, it's so many people out there. So I'm like walking around, I'm like, wow, God really made all of us like, we're all like living, breathing humans right now, just walking around this festival, having a good time. So it definitely did live up to the hype. And I would advise anybody like to go experience it, because um, you're gonna go to Palm Springs. Who just goes to Palm Springs randomly? Like you get to see a whole different community, and even seeing like the wind turbines. Like I'm like, wow, just seeing how their science is out there. It was a beautiful experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to go one day. I always say, okay, this year I'm going to Coachella, and then I end up like busy, or like I have to work or something like that. But next year, yeah, next year I'm
Yeah,
gonna be out there
definitely go. Definitely
for
go.
sure, for sure. All right, last question. What's your favorite memory from college?
Ooh,
I know that's hard to pick one out of all 4 years, but
I would say my favorite memory would have to be. hmm, Well, I mean, I wouldn't trade any experience. I feel like they all molded me to be who I am today. But the biggest memory for me, the best memory, was being SGA president, of course. I'm the seventh woman to be Student Government Association president. Um,
damn, really?
the seventh out of 79 presidents, there have only
Wow.
been 7 women. So that's a huge honor. And I don't think at the time, like I really cause like sat and basked in that bit of history and
We
really
never
like
do. We never do in the moment.
the moment. But
Yeah.
now it's like, wow, like my name will forever be, etched in books of history at Southern. Um, and then I did when I ran unopposed. Nobody ran against me. So um, just the magnitude and the power of that, I think that would have to be my best memory.
Dope. And then you dropping historical facts on us. Well, Zana, you made it through the tidal wave. Congratulations. To close this interview out, tell us like what's onward for Zana Harris look like? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what do you hope to accomplish?
I definitely in the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully I will be out of the classroom. I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but I do hope to expand and maybe, go to law school and get into advocacy and become an advocate for parents, specifically parents who have children with IEPs and 504s. It very well may look like, having a seat at the table of policymakers, or even, returning to colleges and universities and becoming a professor to mold the next generation of teachers. Who knows what life has for me, but I'm willing to see where it'll take me.
Absolutely. And look, whatever you choose to do, I know for a fact that you're gonna be super successful at it.
Thank you.
Um, And thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we don't hear from this generation's educators enough on a platform like this. You know, it's usually like a whole bunch of drama and like shit that really like it's entertaining, but it doesn't really matter, if that makes sense. So it really was refreshing to sit down and listen and have a really genuine conversation with somebody who again is an educator who's making moves, who cares about the community that's in our age group. So again, thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciated the entire conversation, and I hope that, it's received well, and if whatever we discuss, it reaches the right people. So
Absolutely. Love. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you for the next one. Thank you.